Hello, my name is Clayton, and welcome to episode 140 of the Watch Dog podcast. I'm a professional dog runner and watch enthusiast talking to his pals about dogs and watches. How's everyone doing? Thank you so much for listening. You know, I appreciate it. Well, yes, it's an exciting time in the world of watches. Watches and Wonders Eve. I think it used to be a little more fun when everything wasn't so dang expensive. But it is still fun to see all the novelties from the Swiss heavy hitter brands and the underdogs alike. Keith and I had thrown around the possibility of doing an episode covering all the watches, but we agreed we're probably not the best qualified to talk about it. We're just not. Uh, we're not really interested or knowledgeable in a lot of that very expensive stuff that tends to get released at Watches and Wonders. That's almost everything, it seems now. Even Tudor had another price increase on April 1st. So honestly, it's really hard to even be excited about their new stuff. But ultimately, I'm a watch fan. I'm a horology fan. So part of me does like to see the outrageously priced novelties from Cartier. I always like to see what they do, hoping they'll do something that I can actually buy because they really are one of my favorite brands. But lately it's been $70,000 jump hours and that kind of thing. But yeah, I like to see what they're doing. JLC and other brands I know I don't have a snowball's chance in hell of ever owning, but I still like to see what they're doing, even if they are at a crazy price point. What's more interesting to me lately is what's going to be the unexpected hit of Watches and Wonders this week. That random brand that has an affordable killer watch that steals the thunder from the hyper luxury brands. It's hard to predict, but there does always seem to be at least one. 4 years ago, it was the Moon Swatch. We'll talk a little bit more about the Moon Swatch later today. Even though it wasn't an official Watches and Wonders release, since Swatch Group doesn't present at Watches and Wonders, Omega and Swatch strategically debuted it right before. I remember all the watch publications saying that's all anybody was talking about, the Moon Swatch. I think 2 weeks before Watches and Wonders in 2022, they released the Moon Swatch. You had to wait in line for hours. You couldn't buy it online. Everybody was mad about that. It was quite the sensation. I think the Fratello podcast, they mentioned being at a Vacheron event at Watches and Wonders, and somebody walked in with a Moon Swatch, and it completely stole the thunder from all of Vacheron's novelties. That's all anyone focused on. Pretty hysterical. A lot of people in the watch industry, let's be honest, take themselves very seriously. I'm sure it's turned up to 11. Little Spinal Tap reference there. I'm sure it's turned up to 11 at an event like Watches and Wonders. So yes, it is pretty awesome that a plastic watch stole all the thunder from that. I kind of do like to see that. Anyway, last year it was the Nomos Club Sport Neomatic World Timer. With the way the watch industry is going, like we said, it seems like a large percentage of these releases are super expensive luxury items that most of us common folks will never be able to afford, never even sniff a chance at owning them. Then Nomos comes out with a watch with a great complication, the World Timer complication, under 10 millimeters thick, and it's reasonably priced. Was under $5,000 when it was released. It's gone up now. But when they were released, it was under $5,000 in a bunch of fun colorways, 2 standard editions, and then at the time, 6 limited editions. No one had Nomos having one of the top watches at Watches and Wonders last year on the bingo card, but yet they did. So yes, I'm excited to see what that brand is this year. It's silly to wager a guess, but I'm going to say it's Frederique Constant. They have insane movement technology. They just haven't been able to put it together in a design that has mass appeal, right? I think a lot of the watches look derivative. They look kind of old manish. Yeah, nothing has really struck a chord with enthusiasts yet, but will this be the year? I think they can do it. That's what they need. Nomos has always been a pretty popular brand, but that Neomatic World Timer release, I think, did something for them that maybe has never happened. I'll speak for myself. I often thought Nomos watches were quite unattractive. Not a brand I even thought about buying once. And I've thought about buying almost every watch I've seen. I've never even entertained the idea of buying a Nomos. This World Timer came out last year and I was sucked into the hype. It's one of my favorite watches. I wore it to Cabo. I'm still going to talk about that trip. But yeah, so hey, Could Frederic Constant have a watch like that this year? That's also a brand I've never really even thought about buying. But I'm rooting for them for whatever reason. Because, yeah, the movement technology is sick. They're doing a lot of great stuff. They just haven't been able to put it into a watch that I'm interested in, or let's be honest, that a lot of enthusiasts are interested in. So, yeah, that's my bet. They're going to be the brand this year. I might be way wrong on that. And when I do talk about Watches and Wonders, I'll come back with my tail between my legs and say, you know what, I was wrong. But they are presenting at Watches and Wonders. So yeah, let's see what they have in store for us. So I may not do an in-depth podcast about the Watches and Wonders releases, but I do have thoughts on why we like new watches so much in general. So that will be next week's episode. I probably will release it midweek, so we will have some Watches and Wonders releases to talk about, and then we'll talk about new watches in general and why we are so obsessed with them. So yes, that will be next week's episode. Okay, let's get on with this tournament. This is part 2 of the Watch Collaboration Super 16 Bracket Challenge. So if you have not listened to part 1 yet, this episode will make a lot more sense if you do. But most of you probably know enough about these watches where you don't necessarily have to listen to it. All I really did was introduce the 16 competitors who are going to face off today for the crown of my favorite watch collaboration of all time. A good buddy of mine and listener of the podcast suggested I let people vote on the watches and determine a winner that way, but these are my favorites, so I'm not sure how that would work. But hey, feel free. If you listen to this today and don't agree with my choices, you are more than welcome to shoot me a message and let me know what you think should have won. I always love that engagement, as you know. And at the end of the episode, I'll give you a number of ways to reach out to me to do that. So yeah, we'll try to do them pretty fast here since we have a lot of matchups to cover. As a refresher, in the Watch Media bracket, it will be the number 1 seed, the first John Mayer Hodinkee 6900, going up against the Time and Tide X Tag Heuer Aqua Racer Solargraph Sundowner. The Longines Hodinkee Sector Dial collaboration at the number 2 seed will face off against the number 7 seeded Oris X Fratello Big Crown Pointer Date. Oh, these are going to be tough matchups. That one, I'm still undecided as I'm doing this. This is going to be on the fly here. The number 3 seed Doxa X Topper Great White Sub 300 will face off against the Grey NATO Podcast X CWC Crew Watch number 1. And then the number 4 seed Zin X The Rake X Revolution Watch Zin 155 Dark Star will face off against the number 5 seeded Hermes H084 Hodinkee. And then the other bracket, we'll see the number 1 seeded Omega SMP 300 No Time to Die face off against the Seiko 5 X Brian May Red Special collaboration. Either one, I owned the gold-toned one. I prefer the stainless steel one. I don't know. Well, either one's fine. The number 2 seeded Gerard Perigo Aston Martin Green Ceramic Laureato, the 38 millimeter, will face off against the number 7 seed Citizen X Sakan Soyosa. The number 3 seed IWC Mercedes Petronas Chronograph, much easier to say it that way, will face off against the number 6 seed, the Fears/Studio Underdog collaborations. I'm lumping all 3 in here, the Gimlet, the Manhattan, and the Mimosa. And then finally, the number 4 seeded, we talked about it earlier, the talk of the town at Watches and Wonders 4 years ago, now being blamed by many for Omega's struggles, the Moon Swatch will face off against the number 5 seed Breitling NFL collaborations, specifically my Detroit Lions Chronomat B01. Again, I went in quite a bit of detail about all of these watches in part 1. There are also links in the show notes to all of those watches for that episode. Highly recommend you listen to it, but it's not crucial. It's not crucial. There was no real set criteria to my winners here, and it will be different between every matchup. I'll be wildly inconsistent, I'm sure. We'll jump between the brackets as well, I think. I was debating if I should do it that way or not, but I think that will keep all of the matchups fresh in everyone's mind, so I will jump back and forth. That's what we're going to do. This is going to be a long episode, so hey, let's get on with the contest. And since I did cover these watches in depth in the first episode, we're going to be pretty quick here. See if my snaps came through. I have to be, or else it's going to be impossible for me to pick winners. And some of these, like I said a bunch of times already, are excruciatingly difficult choices. Okay, the first matchup here in the Watch Media collaboration bracket. The number one seed John Mayer G-Shock 6900 for Hodinkee goes up against the number 8 seed Time and Tide X Tag Heuer Aqua Racer Solargraph Sundowner. All right, of all the criteria I will be looking at to determine winners, retail price is not one of them. Case in point, these two watches have vastly different original retail prices. I have affordable watches in my collection and expensive watches in my collection. I love them all equally, for the most part. Maybe some of the affordable ones even more. Secondary price may come into play here, however, though. A majority of the watches I'll be looking at today were limited editions and are long sold out, and in almost every case are going well above retail on the secondary market. A lot of these matchups come down to which watch I would rebuy if I have indeed owned them. So obviously, secondary market price will play a role. Not always huge, but it will play a role. The John Mayer 6900. The original one, with a colorway based on a Casio keyboard he played as a young man, retailed for $180 back when it was released in 2020. A brief search online, and the cheapest one I can find is about $700. Wow, they're even more than I thought. I guess I've seen them go for like $350 in some watch groups I'm in, so that's why I thought they were that low still. But no, they're pretty high from all the ones I can find. Now, are they selling for that? I don't know, but that's what they're listed for. $700-800. I even saw one above $1,000. I think Topper has had them pre-owned for that, $350-400 range as well. Don't pay that price. If you're in a watch group, just hope one comes along for like $350. I mean, that's even high, but these will be pretty collectible. They already are. The other two, not so much. So I think this first one is even a higher price because the other two just weren't as good. And then with all the other ones, like I said, the Sheeran, the Climber. So yeah, this first one, it's going at a premium if you want it. If you want to pay that, go for it. I would wait. The Time and Tide Tag Heuer Solargraph was released in 2024. It retailed for about $3,000 USD. Like I said last week, the only one I could find for sale was on Watchfinder for about $6,000. So double retail. Wow. I love the colorways on both of these watches. They're vastly different, of course. The G-Shock is resin. The Solargraph is 40 millimeters, sandblasted grade 2 titanium. Both quartz. I'm a quartz lover, and it's coming through with the watches I picked here, that's for sure. Quite a few quartz watches. I'm a huge fan of the Solargraph. This Time and Tide version is awesome. Anthracite dial, rose gold accents. However, if I were to add a Solargraph to my collection, it would most likely not be this one. It would be the standard version with the teal seconds hand. It's a really tough decision to make here, but because if I were to buy one of these again, the Casio is just more affordable. I would never buy this Time and Tide version, as nice as it is, just because the premium is just too much to pay. I'm a Casio fanboy. I do like John Mayer, too. We haven't talked much about him at all when it comes to this collaboration. If you're not familiar with the watch collecting side of John Mayer, he's a very famous collector at this point. High-end vintage Rolex. I know he's into AP, Patek. So I guess it was a little surprising at the time that he collaborated with G-Shock, but this is a collaboration that made sense because he played a Casio keyboard as a kid. And, he's been in multiple Talking Watches episodes at this point, so he's pretty cozy with Ben Clymer and Hodinkee as well. So all of that, I guess, the 6900 will win here. Goes above the Time and Tide Tag Heuer. So yes, moving on, the number one seed, the John Mayer 6900 G-Shock for Hodinkee. All right, let's move on to the other bracket. The number one seeded Omega SMP 300 No Time to Die faces off against the Seiko 5 Brian May Red Special collaboration. I have a love-hate relationship with the SMP 300. I love the way they look. I loathe the bezel action. There always seems to be at least one issue with whichever bracelet they slap on the SMP 300. It's always a deal breaker. That's my relationship with Omega in general, it seems. They just always screw one thing up to the point where I just don't want to own any of them. As I mentioned last week, the No Time to Die, it was the bracelet that killed it for me. The clasp and the bracelet. But the mesh is just so damn sexy looking. That was really the only way I wanted to wear that watch. The Brian May Seiko 5s they're just fun. I'm a Queen fan. Like I said, I have been for many years now. It's also a meaningful collaboration because Brian May has worn Seiko for such a long time. The red special guitar he plays is iconic. He built it with his dad. That is on the dial of both versions of the Brian May Red Special Seiko 5 that were released. There was a stainless steel, and then there was the gold-plated one that I owned. In true Seiko fashion, both of these were limited editions, but they were ridiculous about the number released. There were 9,000 of the first Brian May collaboration and then 12,500 of the second. I guess you can barely even call that a limited edition, right? They still go for a pretty good amount on the pre-owned market. I'm seeing them on eBay, and the cheapest I'm seeing either one is about $800, and they retail for about $495, I believe. So, yeah, they're holding their value pretty much. No Time to Die is not a limited edition. It's still in the current Omega lineup. It's gone up considerably at retail. I bought mine for, what was it, $9,200, I believe. They are now $2,000 more, $11,200 USD for the No Time to Die. Again, part of the reason people have been so hard on Omega here lately, there's been no improvement to the watch whatsoever, but the price has exploded. Pre-owned, you're probably in the $8,000 neighborhood from what I've seen. Look around, shop around. You could probably find one from a private seller for cheaper, but from dealers, I'm seeing $8,000 to $9,000. As beautiful as the No Time to Die is, just a great watch, I'm not really a James Bond fan. I'm sort of indifferent. I think the character is cool, and I've seen some of the movies, but I'm not a mega fan like so many watch enthusiasts who own this watch. I am a mega fan of Brian May and Queen, that's for sure. And I'm a big Seiko guy. I'm a Seiko guy over an Omega guy, that's for sure. Looking at these prices, rebuying either of these is most likely not in the cards for me at this point. But I'm much more likely to buy Brian May Seiko 5 collaboration over the No Time to Die if I were to do some sort of rebuy. And I would buy the stainless steel version over the gold-plated one I had. So we're going to have our first upset of the tournament here. It's time to die for the No Time to Die. The Brian May Seiko 5 takes it down. So yes, the first upset. The number 8 seed moves on. Okay, back to the watch media collaboration bracket. The number 2 seed, Longines Heritage Classic for Hodinkee, goes up against the number 7 seed, Oris X Fratello Big Crown Pointer Date. I did own the Longines and have not owned any Big Crown Pointer Date, especially this one. The Longines was limited to 500 pieces and was released back in 2021. I talked on the last episode about how much I prefer this cleaner look of the Hodinkee version versus the standard sector dial from Longines. My favorite part of a limited edition or a collaboration is the tweaks they make. Almost always improves on an existing model. The problem is they're limited, they're more expensive, so a lot of people don't like to pay for that. But I'm almost always willing to. I like limited editions. Call me a sucker consumer. I like them. The only Longines I've ever owned, it came on a beautiful Beads of Rice bracelet that I did enjoy wearing, but the leather strap was pretty awful. I've never owned a Big Crown Pointer Date, but if I were to, I would hunt for this Fratello collaboration. And some of the MLB collaborations they did too, that almost made the list. The Roberto Clemente, that one's really nice. That almost made the list, but I don't know, this red and bronze combo put it over the edge. This one was released in 2020. We're traveling back in time for a lot of these great collaborations. There were 300 of these released, 500 of the Longines. Both watches are similarly priced at retail as well. $2,500 for the Longines and about 2,000 pounds for the Oris Big Crown Pointer Date with Fratello. I moved on from the Longines simply because I was just not into dressier watches at that time. I'm much more comfortable wearing them now. I was not back then. I think if I bought it now, it would have far more staying power in my collection. I am far less focused on dive watches now than I used to be back then. That's for sure. It's just a very classy, clean-looking dress watch. Put it on the right strap, and I think it would probably replace the Grona in my collection right now. It's just so good. Looking at pictures of it, doing research for this competition, man, it's good. On the secondary market, I'm seeing them anywhere between $2,300 and $3,500 for the Longines. If you are interested in buying one of these, shop around. There's one for $2,300-ish on the Real right now. I've never bought from there. I don't know how legit they are. I'm not sure I would buy a watch from there, but there is one on there. I would probably wait for one to pop up on Topper or another more reputable website, one that I trust anyway. Not saying the Real is not reputable, but I'm not sure I trust it, okay? I cannot find the Fratello Oris online at all. Looks like everyone who bought one is actually wearing it, which is cool. I love that. No save queens. I also didn't look all that hard. I'm sure they're out there. I just did a rudimentary search. I could not find one. All right, this is tough, but I think while I do really love the Longines, the Oris is playful. And I think with that red dial and the bronze, I think it's just such a warm look and would be perfect for fall. Fall is my favorite season. So yeah, I think I'm going with the fall watch here in another upset. The number 7-seeded Oris Fratello Big Crown Pointer Date takes down the Hodinkee Longines Sector Dial. Wow, 2 big upsets. Here we go. The number 7 seed moves on. All right, back to the other bracket. The number 2-seeded Girard-Perregaux Aston Martin Green Ceramic Laureato, the 38mm version, takes on the Citizen X Sakan Soyosa. Vastly different price points here. The Girard-Perregaux Aston Martin British Racing Green Ceramic was limited to 188 pieces and retailed for $25,000. The Citizen Sakan Soyosa sold out just a few weeks ago. 5,000 pieces made and it retailed for $495. Very fair. Very fair. Citizen does such a great job with pricing for the most part. Again, retail price, not a deciding factor here. I love both. I'm seeing the Soyosa go online for about $700 to $800 now on eBay since they've sold out. Price gouging. Some are charging well over $1,000. You're crazy. You're never going to get it. I don't know what they're actually selling for. You can do that filter on eBay. I didn't, but you could. And it looks like the Girard-Perregaux is selling in that like $19,000 range. That's the one I saw on European Watch. It was going a little above $19,000, which was right around what I paid for the Laureato 50, somewhere in there. So they are very comparable. One has come down and one has come up. Still worlds apart, though, in terms of price when we're talking about the GP and the Citizen here for this battle. I own a Laureato, like I said, not this one. Mine is 39mm. It wears amazingly well. That's why I went with the 38mm green ceramic here. Weight. All right, so my Laureato is two-tone. Even though the center links are capped gold on my Laureato 50, which some people don't like, the bezel is solid gold, the crown solid gold, the rotor. It still comes in at 152 grams size for my 7-inch wrist. It's heavy. It's a heavy watch. It didn't really dawn on me, but when I went to Cabo, I was wearing 3 watches on strap. When I got home, I put the Laureato on and man, my wrist like fell to the ground. I was like, holy crap, this is a heavy watch. Woo! So the green ceramic version is obviously going to be way lighter. The heavy one wears well, so I imagine a ceramic version will wear even better. I've owned a ceramic Girard-Perregaux, the Casquette, and that wore great. So I imagine a Laureato is going to wear even better. Oh, it's so good. We have a Soyosa in the house. It belongs to my wife. As I said last week, I'm completely indifferent on this watch. It just leaves me emotionless. However, the Sakan version is neat. The pixelated sword minutes hand slicing through the indices. It has an inscription on the case back. I think it takes a somewhat vanilla, bland watch, even though Soyosa has been a big hit for Citizen. It's, nothing super exciting. It just makes it more unique with this version. However, I just can't stop looking at pictures and videos of the green ceramic Laureato. It's so good. Spending a lot of money on one is just not going to happen probably. But if something happened where I did move on from the 50 and I still wanted a Laureato, it would probably be the green ceramic one. So the number 2 seed will move on here. The Girard-Perregaux Aston Martin green ceramic Laureato 38mm takes down the Citizen Sakan Soyosa. Okay, we're getting through this. Halfway done with the first round. Here we go. Next, The number 3 seeded Topper Doxa Great White Sub 300 going up against the Grey NATO CWC Crew Watch number 1, the Grey NATO podcast. As I said in the last episode, the Doxa Topper Sub 300 was my very first Doxa I ever had in the collection. I'd been waiting for the right one, and when Topper announced this, I knew this was my chance. Limited to 100 pieces. I had to act fast. It sold out very quickly. Full lume dial, but didn't look like it all the time. Appeared to be white in natural light. Like I said last week, I prefer that over a yellow, sort of luminescent looking dial. Looks a little, I don't know, immature-ish. I'm just being honest. I don't love the way that looks all the time. On an affordable watch, fine. On an expensive watch, no thanks. No date, which I also like most of the time on a watch. After a bit, though, I was just left a little disappointed by the quality of the watch in general. The bracelet looks great, but just didn't seem to match the price tag. The bezel action was tinny. Marissa, my wife, even thought it was tinny. She went through and moved my bezels. I promise I'm talking literally here. She went through and did that and said, yeah, this one feels kind of cheap. Yeah, I don't know. It just didn't match up to my expectations, unfortunately. The hat that came with it was probably my favorite part of the collaboration, and I still have it. I did not sell that along with the watch, and I was able to land the hat from the second Doxa collaboration that Topper did on the Sub 250T. So I have both hats. And I guess, like I said, that will be my lasting connection to this watch and collaboration. It's my favorite part of it. The Grey NATO CWC collaboration is a great high accuracy quartz titanium fixed bar watch. They limited it to 500 pieces, but I think they ended up selling around 350, 360, mid 300s, I believe. Retailed for about $1,100. Like I said, high accuracy quartz. I love that, as you know. The number one reason I got rid of it was the 12-hour bezel instead of a traditional count up dive bezel. Topper and the Grey NATO podcast are both great institutions that I have a lot of respect and admiration for. Was happy to support both by buying these respective watches. This one's tough. This is a tough decision to make. Ultimately, it comes down to a few things, I think. For the type of watch that the CWC is, titanium, high accuracy quartz, it makes it the ultimate tool watch, except for that bezel. But for most people who like it, it's the ultimate tool watch. The black dial, just a rugged, tough aesthetic. It's a badass watch. Fixed bars can be limiting, but I have the hook and loop straps that make both that and the Tudor FXD Black very comfortable to wear. Love those Velcro hook and loop straps. It's also incredibly light, especially a quartz titanium watch. Toy-like. I like that. A lot of people don't like that. The cause that Topper championed with its Doxa collaboration is incredible, and I love all of that, but yeah, the watch itself just did not live up to the expectation I had for Doxa ownership. So another upset here, the CWC Grey NATO podcast Crew Watch number 1 will move on to the next round over the Doxa Topper collaboration. Okay, back over to the other watch collaboration bracket. The IWC, oh, this is a mouthful. The IWC Pilot's Watch Chronograph 41 Mercedes AMG Petronas Formula 1 Team Edition. Oh, God. Takes on the Studio Underdog and Fears collaborations, the Gimlet, the Manhattan, and the Mimosa. I've never owned a watch from any of these brands. I have seen all brands in person, this specific IWC, and then other variations of Studio Underdog and Fears watches. The IWC is titanium, again, with those teal accents and strap. It wears like a dream, looks $1 million. The lug-to-lug worked on my wrist when I tried it on, and now that I have the Laureato, I think this particular IWC has replaced the Ingenieur as my favorite offering from the brand, and the one I'm most likely to buy if I ever do purchase an IWC. I say that knowing Watches and Wonders is right around the corner. They might release something else that knocks my socks off, but as of right now, it's this one. The Fears Studio Underdog collaboration watches, on the other hand, are also fantastic. The price on these is what really struck me. The Mimosa was offered for a week. I believe it was a week. They do a period where you can order one. Anyone who wants one during that period can get one, but then not available again forever. The Gimlet was available at British Watchmakers Day, and the Manhattan was available at Wind Up New York last year. Yeah, just both exclusive compared to the Mimosa, which we all had a shot at if we chose to. It's quite rare when a new watch is released these days and you look at the price and you say, you know what? I would pay that. That's what I thought with the Mimosa. It was super reasonable. These are all modeled after drinks, and I think they nailed the dials and the colorways perfectly. Certainly my favorite offerings from either brand. And while none of these three watches are available to purchase from the brands anymore, you have to look on the secondary market. This IWC is still in the current lineup, and you can still purchase it for $8,900 USD. You can do quite well on these on the secondary market. A quick scan of Chrono 24, and I found them for anywhere from $6,300 to $7,800. Now, if you buy brand new, you get a great warranty with IWC. It would be great, to buy if you're looking to establish some purchase history. If you really want a watch, you can do this. The Mimosa, anyway, is actually not ridiculous on Chrono 24. You can find them for anywhere from $1,600 to $2,000. There is somebody actually selling all three, the Gimlet, the Manhattan, and the Mimosa, on Chrono 24 for $9,700 right now, a US-based seller. So for almost as much as this IWC, you can have all three of these offerings from Studio Underdog and Fears. I think they're future classics. Two of the three, anyway, were so exclusive that they are collector's items. And then throwing in the Mimosa, I don't know how many they sold, but still pretty rare and exclusive. Do they compete in terms of watchmaking with the IWC? No. Do they compete in cool factor? 100%. This is tough. Yeah, I don't know. Seeing this listing now, would I buy all three of these over the IWC? Oh, it's crazy. I'm unlikely to do that. I'm unlikely to buy the Mimosa even. I admire them from afar, I think. I am very likely to one day buy this IWC, though. So it takes a pretty, let's face it, bland pilot's watch and makes it super fun. Almost as fun as these Studio Underdog and Fears collaborations. So yeah, I'm stalling here, as you can tell, but I think I have to give the edge to the IWC here. So moving on to the next round, the number 3 seed IWC Pilot's Watch Chronograph 41 Mercedes AMG Petronas Formula One Team Edition. I just kind of want to kick it out of the competition so I don't have to say that name again. Oh, God, I hate it. All right, let's finish off the Watch Media collaboration bracket here. The number 4 seed Zinn x The Rake x Revolution Watch Zinn 155 Dark Star takes on the Hermes H08 for Hodinkee at the number 5 seed. Had the Zinn gone up against any other watch, I think it had a really good chance of moving on to the next round. However, the H08 is just so much more wearable. Two themes keep coming up here with these choices: high accuracy quartz and titanium. The H08, while an automatic featuring a Vaucher movement, is titanium, DLC coated, 39 millimeters, and even though it's a square case, it still wears incredibly well. I found it more wearable than a large Santos for my wrist. The taupe dial and strap contrast nicely with that black case. The Zinn 155 Dark Star comes on a bund strap, but it's very thick. I think that's such a cool look with the bund strap, and I think you can almost pull off a watch that's too big for you with a bund strap because it's just all outrageous anyway. 43 millimeters in diameter. Now, some will call the Hermes a jewelry watch brand, a fashion watch brand, but Zinn is anything but, right? They're the ultimate badass tool watch company, and this one makes a statement. The Hermes retailed for about $7,200 USD. They were limited to 100 pieces. They sold out very fast. They trade high. Looking at Chrono 24, you're seeing them for over 10 grand. I saw one for 12,500. Very exclusive at 100 pieces. I've seen them come up in watch groups for around retail in the TGN Slack. There was somebody recently selling one for about $7,000. I don't know. Even at that price, it's still just a little too much based on the one I owned. I owned the standard version. The Vaucher movement did have a quirk that we first saw on the Oris Caliber 400, where if you push the crown in when you're setting the time, the minute hand would jump back or forward a minute or two. You could backhack that minute hand 5 minutes and then move it to the desired location, and that worked better, much like you could do with the Oris. Our friend Sanjay went through all this. That's right around the time I first met him, his beef with Oris over that. Even though it is a quirk and you can work around it, I don't love to see that on a luxury watch. I don't know if that's the case on all of them, but I know from my research that mine wasn't the only instance of this happening with these movements and these watches. The Zin was limited to 150 pieces and retailed for $2,500. Very fair. I mean, this is 7 years ago, 2019. Can you imagine that now? They're not trading for too crazy these days, actually. I found one on eBay for about $3,500, looked to be in exquisite condition. Ultimately, I love the way the H08 wears. I think it has to win out here on that alone, even though the price this particular one is trading at is a little too high for my comfort level. If I ever start working out, I may have to reconsider the Zin. For now, the number 5 seed moves on, the Hermes 808 for Hodinkee. All right, that wraps up this bracket for the first round. In the Watch Media Collaboration bracket, the second round will have the number 1 seed John Mayer G-Shock 6900 for Hodinkee take on the lowest remaining seed, which is the Oris Fratello Big Crown Pointer Date at number 7. In the other matchup, we will see the H08 from Hermes for Hodinkee at the number 5 seed taking on the number 6 seeded Greynato Podcast CWC Crew Watch number 1. All right, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's finish up the last matchup from the other watch collaboration bracket. The number 4 Moon Swatch goes up against the number 5 Breitling NFL collaborations, specifically the Chronomat B01 from 2024 that was released for all 32 teams. I, of course, have the Detroit Lions version. A lot has been said about the Moon Swatch. I don't think the quality of the watch does justice to just how important this collaboration was. It generated hype, disgust, and just overall general curiosity. I have seen a number of Moon Swatches out in the wild on younger people's wrists. People I know who are not watch enthusiasts have asked me my opinions on the Moon Swatch. However you feel about the quality of a plastic version of the Speedmaster, it got people talking. It's a swatch. Swatch stands for second watch. This isn't going to be something you wear every day. It's a novelty. The straps were not good. But again, it's just not about that. I think people missed the point. The brand Swatch was struggling and needed foot traffic into their retail locations. From that standpoint alone, it was an absolute home run. Got them back into the top 10 for 2022 in the Morgan Stanley Swiss Watch Report, I believe. They're still doing pretty well. I think they're like 14 this year. But gosh, they had really sunk down before the Moon Swatch. And then we add the Blancpain collaboration as well, which I think are better, pretty good quality watches, but that just didn't move the needle like the Moon Swatch did. That's for sure. I think it was absolutely genius to not offer it online and only in their Swatch stores. I'm in the minority on that, though. I had the Mars version. I didn't wear it all that much. I eventually sold it, but I'll never forget going to Times Square and waiting in line over a full year after they were released. There was still a buzz about this watch. Then we have the NFL Breitling collaboration. I said it last week, my Detroit Lions Chronomat B01 is my most worn watch. In my collection, where no watch is truly safe, this and probably the Shinola are really the only two watches that will never go anywhere and will get passed down to nephews and family and all that. Even the Air King probably isn't safe. This original release saw all 32 teams get 104 pieces made of the Chronomat. Some, like the Lions version and the Raiders version, looked very good. Other teams, not so good. The Vikings, I don't like the Vikings anyway, but the purple, and I know I have some Viking fan listeners, so I'm sorry. I don't think that one looks so good. Anyway, the team logos were on the subdial at the 9 o'clock. A lot of people thought that was tacky, but like I said, it's so small you can barely make it out in most cases. Though they came out with 2 more versions in 2025, an Endurance Pro and a Chronomat, not the chronograph, just a standard version. I don't know how successful this collaboration really was. I was in Detroit for Thanksgiving this past year and went to a watch store, and they still had my exact version of the Chronomat in the case to buy. 2 years after it was released. They were limited to 104 pieces too, and they were $9,600. So I don't know. I guess not every brand had 104 super fans who were willing to shell out that kind of money. I have noticed the general manager of the Detroit Lions, Brad Holmes, wearing this watch. So I don't care if it wasn't successful. I'm wearing the same watch as the general manager of the Lions. So it's pretty cool. You may think I'm going one way here, but I'm about to pull a swerve. While I love my Lions watch and always will, as far as collaborations go, Omega and Swatch teaming up for something like this had a lot more at stake. Omega putting its reputation as a luxury watchmaker on the line. Again, now many are stating that this collaboration has been the downfall of Omega, right? Cheapening their most iconic watch in this way. I still don't really think that's true, but if you feel that way, you're entitled to it, that's for sure. The Breitling NFL collaboration is more of a licensing deal. I think Breitling is the official timer of the NFL now. I could be wrong about that, but I think they did strike that dealership. So lucrative for both sides, I guess. But yeah, ultimately, I'm putting the number 4 Moon Swatch ahead of the Breitling NFL collaboration. As far as actually liking the watch, I like the Breitling a lot more. In terms of historic collaboration, it's the Moon Swatch. So yes, the number 4 Omega Swatch Moon Swatch moves on to wrap up this first round. In this bracket, the second round matchups will be the number 2 Girard-Perregaux Aston Martin Laureato green ceramic 38mm version going up against the number 8 Seiko 5 Brian May Red Special and the number 3 seeded IWC AMG Mercedes Petronas Chronograph, I'm calling it that now for short, going up against the number 4 seeded Moon Swatch. Okay, let's buzz through these now that we've talked quite a bit about each watch. Starting in the Watch Media collaboration bracket, the second round, here we go. The number 1 seeded John Mayer 6900 going up against the Fratello Oris Big Crown Pointer Date. I'm usually a pretty cynical watch collector and hobbyist, but I do think that the John Mayer collaboration here is quite organic. He is or has been an investor with Hodinkee, so there's that relationship. But whenever a collaboration comes from the heart of nostalgia, it gets me right in the feels. This Fratello Oris Big Crown Pointer Date is a nice looking watch, but I remember the point in time that I bought the John Mayer 6900 very fondly. I was still young in the hobby. It was right when I formed a lot of the friendships I still have today. It just brings a smile to my face, and I don't have any connection like that whatsoever with the Oris. And again, Casio is probably my favorite brand. This is going to be a tough one to beat in the competition, that's for sure. The second round winner here, the number 1 seeded John Mayer 6900 G-Shock, moves on to the conference finals, if you will. Moving over to the other watch collaboration bracket, the green ceramic Girard-Perregaux Laureato with Aston Martin takes on the Seiko 5 Brian May collab. Again, vastly different price points. In their respective price points on the secondary market, both are a little more than I would want to spend to buy today. I love Brian May, but I just can't get past the unique beauty of the green ceramic Laureato and that dial, especially. I love the dial on this watch. The Aston Martin relationship means nothing to me, while the Brian May relationship means a whole lot. So there's that component as well. But ultimately, I could wear my green ceramic Laureato while listening to Queen. I could do that. I could have the best of both worlds, to quote Van Halen. So in terms of collaborations here, the Laureato moves on. The number 2 seeded Laureato defeats the number 8 seeded Brian May Seiko 5. The Cinderella run ends here for the Seiko 5. Okay, back to the watch media collaboration bracket. The Hermes H08 Hodinkee goes up against the Grey-Nato CWC Crew Watch number 1. Both titanium, both crazy wearable. Most of these CWC Crew watches are sold in the slack for what they went for retail. So if you want one, there's almost always somebody willing to give it up. A lot of people have traded them back and forth within the community. Like I said, the H08 is more limited and is increasingly expensive and difficult to get your hands on. They both have limitations and quirks that made me move on from them. Well, of course, again, I did not own the Hodinkee version. I owned a standard version. However, the CWC is going to take it here. It's tough, but the CWC takes it. While Brian May's Cinderella run is over, the Cinderella run for the CWC continues, going on to face the John Mayer G-Shock in the bracket finals, the CWC Greynato Podcast Crew Watch number 1. Okay, to wrap up this round, we move over to the other bracket. The IWC Mercedes Petronas Pilot's Watch at the number 3 seed takes on the number 4 Moon Swatch. In terms of importance, good or bad, the Omega and Swatch collaboration once again trumps IWC teaming up with this racing team. However, the IWC is just so good. The materials, the comfort, the wearability, the colorway, I feel like it would be criminal to let the Moon Swatch beat it in this round. The Moon Swatch is polarizing, and I feel like it's done a great job to get people into the hobby, though. Like I said, I have seen so many young people wearing it. I will always respect it for that. Like I said, one of the couples we were with last week had a son who showed a flicker of interest for watches, 12 years old. I always think that's amazing. And that's what the Moon Swatch was targeting. So we want younger people to get into the hobby. We shouldn't gatekeep. Watches like this are super important to keep interest in watches alive. A kid might be able to afford a Moon Swatch with hopes of one day getting the real thing. Maybe his dad has a Speedmaster and he has a Moon Swatch, and he inherits his dad's Speedmaster, or even better, buys one day when he has his own career and real money. But again, the IWC is just so damn beautiful. I'm changing the criteria as I go here, like I said I was going to do. So ultimately, the number 3 seeded IWC, it takes the cake here. It goes over the Moon Swatch. So in the next round for this bracket, 2 heavy hitters. The number 2 seeded Girard-Perregaux Green Ceramic Laureato with Aston Martin will take on the number 3 seeded IWC AMG Mercedes Petronas F1 edition. Oh man, that's going to be tough. Okay, we're down to the final 4. The John Mayer 6900 faces off against the number 6 seeded Greynato CWC Crew Watch number 1. James Stacy makes out pretty well either way here. He works for Hodinkee and co-hosts the Greynato podcast. The John Mayer G-Shock wins pretty easily here. The further we get along in this competition, the less I have to say. Although I do feel the CWC Greynato podcast collaboration is about as organic as the John Mayer. My Casio fandom wins out here in the end, though. It's tougher than you think, really. It would have been more perfect if the G-Shock was a square and the CWC had a dive bezel. Then it would have been almost impossible to choose. But the Casio just edges it out here. So going to the finals to face either the Girard-Perregaux or the IWC, it's the John Mayer G-Shock 6900 for Hodinkee. Okay, speaking of that matchup, let's decide a winner. The Green Ceramic Laureato or the IWC Pilot's Watch. Okay, speaking of, let's decide a winner here. The Green Ceramic Laureato or the IWC Pilot's Watch. I have a Laureato in the collection. That satisfies my integrated bracelet sports watch want. It's definitely not a need. It's a want. The Ingenieur is such a great offering from IWC, but having a Laureato in my collection, it renders it unnecessary. I don't like to have much repetition in my collection. So as much as I love the wild and unique look of the Green Ceramic Laureato, I could wear my Laureato 50 alongside the IWC Mercedes Petronas Pilot's Watch chronograph. And I think as far as this competition goes anyway, that's what I'm going to do. All right, so we have the final set. The number 1 seed, John Mayer G-Shock 6900 for Hodinkee from the Watch Collaboration Media Bracket will take on the IWC AMG Mercedes Petronas Pilot's Watch chronograph from the other bracket. All right, I love both of these colorways. The collaboration aspect with John Mayer and the G-Shock tugs at my heartstrings a lot more than IWC and an F1 racing team. I'm not into F1 at all. The chances of me actually rebuying the John Mayer G-Shock are slim at the prices they're going for. I think doing this competition has rekindled my love for the IWC, though. It moves it up near the top of list in terms of watches I want to buy. Oh, man. I didn't see that coming out of this. I like it that much. I've had the luxury of actually getting to try it on as well. But I think as far as collaborations go, The John Mayer G just nailed it. A watch collector designing a watch he loves based on a personal experience and nostalgia. It's tastefully done. Now, granted, it has no added features, no multi-band 6, a simple battery-powered G-Shock, but still, there's just that something special about it. And I can't deny it. I can't deny it. Oh, this is tough. But my favorite watch collaboration of all time is, drum roll please, the John Mayer G-Shock 6900 for Hodinkee. Okay, we wrapped it up. I'm almost certain that this would not win for most of you. Please let me know. Do you hate my choice? Do you love my choice? Feel free to let me know what your favorite watch collaboration is. Would you have picked the John Mayer for me? Is it yours? Would that not even have made your top 200? I can't wait to hear it. Thanks for hanging in for this competition. It was super fun to revisit all of these watches. You can reach out to me on Instagram with your brackets if you so choose. You can shoot me a message there. This gets released as a YouTube video. You can comment there as well. And you can text the podcast. All links in the show notes below. I can't text you back. Thanks again for all of your support. And remember, sometimes you're the dog, sometimes you're the hydrant, but hey, at least you're outside. We'll catch you on the next episode of the Watch Dog Podcast. See you later.